Hi, everybody, it's Weird Wink Wilkinson laughing and scratching at you. How's everybody doing today? I got a little bit of a stiff neck. Let me just fix this up. Oh, that feels a lot better. Well, I got a great show for you today with some wonderful weird stuff. I feel so very weird.
There are some things in this world that go way beyond human understanding. Things that cannot be explained, things that most people don't want to know about. That is where we come in.
No human being would stack books like this.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. All out of bubblegum.
Well, it looks like you're the one who needs to be taught a lesson, pal. Class is paying 101. The instructor's Casey Jones.
Look, I don't want to fight you.
Well, tough rocks, pal.
Do you want some coffee, Mr. Tully?
Do I?
Yes, have some.
Yes, have some.
It's a cup of coffee in the big time, yeah. Cup of coffee in the big time.
Hey, what do you say we both be independent together, huh?
I guess one person can make a difference. Enough said.
We have the tools, we have the talent. It's Miller time.
Luminous being so we, not this fruit bastard.
Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
Hey, these aren't my rules. Come to think of it, I don't have any rules.
Well, that's great. Either I have a monster in my kitchen or I'm completely crazy.
I don't think you're crazy.
You know something? Maybe I am insane. Maybe I am insane.
Pizza dude's got 30 seconds.
Rise to the top, oh yeah.
That's the nicest thing a dog can say about anybody.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Enough, I get the point.
You know what you need? You need a Brazilian plastic surgeon.
I've got one that can see.
Sometimes happens, someone has to deal with it, and who are you gonna call?
It's showtime.
All right. Hello, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to, depending on what channel you're watching this on, Comic Book Radio, episode 280, or on the Alterna Comics channel. I'm simulcasting to the Alterna channel and also my own channel. So thank you guys for being here. This is an important campaign. In-house printing. This is the launch stream for that. And this is something that I'm not just bringing to Alterna, but I'm going to be bringing this to hopefully a lot of indie comic creators out there that are looking to get their comics printed up with newsprint interiors, done right, high quality, and affordably. I'm going to be going over this campaign. There's a lot on this campaign. There's a lot of details on this campaign, so I want to make sure I take my time. And I'm also going to be kind of explaining along the way as I read the details of the campaign to you guys. I'm going to be then on the second half of the show opening up, because it is an Open Lines Friday. I'm going to open up the channel to you guys as well. If you want to come on here and talk about this, if you've got questions you want to ask me live on air, you can do that. But that'll be the second half of the show. So before I start with everything, I want to say hello to you guys. We got Bretsky in here. What's up, Bretsky? And also, this is the first Alterna Comic stream of May. So I'm gifting memberships to the Alterna channel. So 10 total people got memberships to this channel. If you're watching on the Alterna channel and you got a membership there, congrats and enjoy it for the month. We got Kyle Prometheus here. What's up, Kyle? We got Massive Panda. How's it going, Massive Panda? Irene is here too. What's up? Ara, how's it going? Ara, good to see ya. Blake Powell, hey. We got Apex Comics. What's up? Wayne is here too. How's it going, Wayne? Metatron's Cube. What's up, Metatron? Randy Scribner's here. How's it going, Randy? Michael Ferrero's in here. What's up, Michael? Corey Landis is here as well. Says this will be the most interesting campaign in a while. All right. Necessity is the mother of invention. So, and I'll explain my motivations and why this decision, which was not made lightly, why I did make it and then spent a lot of time researching to make sure that I'm getting into this without, you never really know what you're getting into until you get into it. But I've done a lot of research and I have a lot of experience doing this kind of stuff. I'm a degreed graphic designer. I worked at 3 print shops, 2 sign shops, and a copy center years ago, albeit. But most of this stuff is not high-tech based. Most of this stuff is like mechanical in terms of you're assembling and doing all that kind of stuff. As a production designer or graphic designer, I had a lot of experience with that. And it's kind of stuff I still do day to day with Alterna, to be perfectly honest. So even though I did a lot of research into what tech and what machines and, what's the best kind of road to go down, I'm going to still have to do some testing once I get everything in here, just to make sure it's all right. Chris 6, what's up, Chris 6? Is excited for this one. Citizen Ronan, how's it going, my friend? We got Rex Doom here. What's up? Hope you're having a great night. Thank you for joining us, Rex. Let's see. We got Captain Goodnight here, too. What's up, Captain Goodnight? Jefferson Roswell says newsprint or bust. And Captain Goodnight's the first backer. Awesome. Well, we'll take a look at the campaign in just a moment, but thank you for backing and being the first backer. Headless Bourgeoisie, good evening, everyone. Good evening indeed. Kelraiser, how's it going? We got Yan Zhao here. Also, What Geeks Do says, hail all, I got a membership. Thanks, Pete. All right. So you got a membership to the Alterna channel. You're one of the lucky people that got a gifted membership. Appreciate that. Apex says, I'm glad you're having this campaign, Pete. You and me both. Dr. Mask, what's up, Doc? Hope you're doing good. We got Shadowhawk Talk says, hail Pizza Medi, congrats on the big move. Now, no congrats just yet. Let's have congrats when the goal has been reached. Right now, it's one of these things where I'm kind of fingers crossed, until we reach the various goals on the campaign, but the big goal of 15K, then I can have some breathing room. But thank you for the congrats on the launch. I appreciate it. Tank Ferret, what's up, Tank Ferret? Says hail to all you magnificent people. 10-8 says close second I was. You were the second person to back. All right. Rex says, I think this is the best thing for Alterna. Exciting. Let me tell you, it's in many ways it's the only thing for Alterna. So to preface all of this, the landscape is changing with the way the economy of printing is kind of moving forward. If you're a creator and you're used to this kind of realm, whether you've been doing this for a long time or whether you're new to it, it is changing. It's changing quickly. It's been changing. That's part of the reason why I'm doing this. The other part of the reason is because not just economically are things changing, but I'm noticing quality-wise things are changing too. Over the past 2 years in particular, I've had too many instances with printers where there's been like really big mistakes, excessive damages, and the overall quality of just the stuff that I'm getting. I'm noticing that there's been a pretty big decline, especially from years past. And it doesn't matter who I'm using. I don't just mean specifically newsprint, because we use all kinds of other printers. We use offset, sheet fed, digital offset, just straight up digital printing. So across the board, it's been this way. And I can't do everything. That's for sure. And when it comes to printing, I can't do everything. There's still some aspects of it where it makes more sense for me to use a different printer, outsource something, use a commercial printer for whatever the job may be, depending on the quantity, depending on the type of job that it is. But when it comes specifically to newsprint, there's been so many things over the past 2 years. I've noticed that for us, the pricing has doubled. And it's not that newsprint isn't feasible or viable anymore necessarily. It's the fact that we have to get our quantities up to 4 times what we're used to selling at to get it back to the point of what our price point was at. So that's just not something that's going to happen overnight, if ever. And that's just being realistic about it. So I really had to think the past couple of months, is this it for newsprint? Do we not do newsprint single issues anymore? Do I move on from that and have to increase the price point and do like maybe an uncoated natural stock or something like that that's closer, has a little bit of a vellum, a toothy finish to it? I hate like the slick kind of copy paper. And I don't mean to offend anyone who has to go this route. I've been down there before, and I get it. You got to do what you got to do to get your comic out there. I'm not trying to shame anybody about what they have to do to get things done. But for me personally, like I've been there, done that. I don't want to go back to that. And I definitely don't want to charge like 2 to 3 times on a comic for something that I just view it as inferior to what we were doing before. So looking through a lot of my options, I was kind of shocked that we could actually do this. Now, I'm going to have to start from the beginning. Why not? Because also there's with commercial printing, especially newsprint printing, consistency's tough. It's part of the charm in a way. Sometimes things are misregistered and sometimes it's okay. It's not too bad. Sometimes it kills you because it's a page that you just really wish that because the art's great on it and you'd wish it would just not look the way it now does. And you wish it would look the way you intended it to look. Sometimes there's inconsistency, and this happens frequently with web press printing. Web press is what newsprint is printed using. It's not an offset, it's not sheet fed, web press is a different way of printing because of the fact that the paper's so thin. It moves such a high speed. At a commercial industrial level, newsprint printing is a scary thing. If you've ever seen one of these printers, like they'll eat you alive. So you'll get inconsistencies with the color, you'll get inconsistencies with the saturation and the tone sometime. And this is just stuff you have to accept when you use it. It's part of the reason also why, newsprint comics and newsprint in general, stuff printed on newsprint is usually cheaper. But if you increase the alleged quality of what you're doing, and you hope that you're increasing the quality of what you're doing, of course, the price tag increases. So not only what you have to pay, but then what the reader has to pay. Now, when you do that, and it still isn't coming out good because of other various issues, it's nerve-wracking. So what happened was on King Cryptid number 2, and I already explained a bunch of this, so bear with me if you heard this story before. On King Cryptid number 2, I had to go back to print. And I had to go back to print because about 400 or so copies of the original print run were damaged from the newsprint printer. Now, they made it right, gave me a credit for the next run and all of that. But I'm still without the books. So without those books, and we had a misprint, it was pretty garish. It was like the red ink must have just exploded onto the page, which is crazy because it's a black and white issue, but that's neither here nor there. So we had these 400 copies that I don't have access to, so I had to go back to print. Went back to print with like a small run just to test out a printer, and they're like a digital comics printer. I'm not going to necessarily name names about it, but when the book got back, there were some problems on the interior where, probably only I noticed, to be honest. I don't know if many people are really going to notice or care, but I notice, and that really irks me when I feel like someone kind of messed with the files. So the text isn't as crisp as it could be, and that kind of bugged me. Now again, maybe I just noticed no one else will. But then the other part of it that bugs me is also this, and I've learned that a lot of digital comics printers do this over the years, so it wasn't the number one thing that kind of irritated me. But so we've all had digital comics printings that have kind of looked like that. It doesn't look nice and flat. And when I had the discussion with the printer about the various issues that I brought up with them, because there was a couple other issues that didn't have to necessarily do with the printing, but had to do with just the production of how I received it and what they had done also. I'm not going to get into it because it doesn't matter with the printing. It's not something that's pertinent. But when they talked to me about that bowing in the middle there, right, like this, they said that that's just what happens. That's digital comics printing. And then they said that the text not printing crisply, that's just something that happens too, even though the print sample they gave me looked perfect. I said, you gave me the print sample that you have on your site, and it's the same paper stock that I chose, and everything prints great, but then what I got, it didn't print so great, so we had a back and forth. And I took it upon myself because they told me that it's impossible and you can't do it. So I said, okay, fine. I'm going to take one of these books apart and I'm going to fold the pages as they should be so it'll lay flat. Because I know that you can. Because I used to do this kind of thing when I made ash cans years ago. It's not that hard. You just got to fold the pages. And if you're going to do this at a level where you're making a lot of print jobs, you get a paper folding machine. They're like $1,000 to $2,000. And that's a big investment, obviously. But if this is something you're going to do and you're going to be a printer, you need it. You need this stuff. So, I hand folded each page. It didn't take too long. It only probably took like 30 seconds after removing the staples. So the difference is obviously it's there. I didn't put any weight on the book. I didn't do anything like that. So you can see the difference. And let me see. Is there a way? Oh, you know what? I'll flip it. This way you can see spine to spine. Okay. All right. So there's a big difference. So that's one thing. And they said that that's just how it is, right? Can't do anything about it. Okay. So then I thought, I got a lot of like posters and stuff around. Let me see if I could fold all those, staple them together, make a kind of, book. I've got like a little saddle stitch stapler and see, will it still lay flat? Now this is all cover stock. These are thick pages. This isn't, and that's not on newsprint, those books. Those books are on like 60-pound, offset, uncoated paper. These are all like cover stock sheets. And this still doesn't bow anything close to as bad as that. You can see right through it, right? Okay, so that proved to me that the folding of the comic situation is a big part of it. You got to assemble it correctly. You don't put all the pages together, then fold them, then staple them. You got to fold them all individually, put them together, staple them, trim them. Now, I thought, well, I wonder, can I? Because this is where we're coming upon, because I had to go with this printer on the short run because I can't do that with the newsprint printer. Newsprint printer at this point, to get the prices where I want them to be at, I got to print like 2,000 minimum of one copy. I'm not going to do that going back to print on a book. That's crazy. So I was wondering, can I cut apart one of our old newsprint books and then print it at home? So I did that. It's like a 4x6 or a 5x7, something like that. And I put it through the printer and it printed fine. You can see the other printing, of course, this stuff here. This is a shrunken down page 1 of King Cryptid number 5. This stuff here is on the pre-existing page. So it went perfectly through. No problems whatsoever. And it printed great, really nice. If I show you like really close and get obnoxious with it, hopefully it focuses. Yeah, you can see. There's legible, nice text and everything. And my printer is not that great. That's not the printer that I would be using on this campaign. I'd be using a much better printer or printers, luckily, if we can reach what I want to reach. And then there'd be an option to print on a mini comic or a full-size standard comic. So I put that through. It printed nice enough that I figured I'll go and I'll get some newsprint, clean sheets of newsprint at the store, and then run them through and see how it works. So I did that with a couple test pages, and these are all on the campaign. But before I read through the campaign, I just figured I'd show you guys these things, live and in person. This is another page from King Cryptid number 5. It's Nick Hunter's art. He did a great job. So you can see it prints really nice. And again, this is like my decade-old inkjet printer. Did a couple other test pages, like mini comic size, and ran that through. I wanted to have some like black and white test pages, see how it would work. Very thin paper. I'd say it's just slightly thicker than this paper, but just slightly. So it worked fine. There was no problems with the feeder. There was no problems with the printing. I thought it was too good to be true, right? So I created like a mini booklet thing. I had some poster lying around of Blood Moon. So I put that together, used that as a cover after I, put it together, trimmed it and everything. And then I did like test prints of a bunch of different Alterna books and just ran it quick through like draft mode. So it's not going to look too great, but this was about just printing it and assembling it. The sample books that I'm going to be making on the campaign are going to be of higher quality than this. Like I said, it's on draft mode from like a 10-year-old printer, just to kind of put it together, just to kind of get it assembled and kind of have a proof of concept as far as that went. So it's a bunch of different pages. It doesn't look nearly as bad as it probably should look. Put them all together and then staple them again, and it lays relatively flat. Again, I'm not pressing any of these books. I'm not putting any weight on them, anything like that. That would help. Really putting them together, put like a bunch of comic boards on top, and then put like maybe a 15 or 25 pound weight and leave it overnight. That would help press it if you want them to be flatter than they are. But, I didn't do any of that for that book. So I figured, okay, the next step is I want to make a book that's really nice, but I can't make a big full-size book. I need the printer that I'm trying to raise money for, in addition to a lot of other things on this campaign. I need a printer that prints like 11 by 17, 12 by 18, that kind of a thing, to make these full-size pages. I can only really make a book that's a mini-size book, which is like 5 by 7.5. So that's what I did anyway. And I put them together, and I got the covers printed up at Staples. Now, the covers are very, very close to the quality of what I would be getting done with a commercial printer, because I'm going to outsource the covers. Because after doing the math on it, between the machine I'd have to get and the ink usage and the paper, I'd have to get a whole other kind of thing going on to do the covers right. It's a different process than to do the interiors. It made way more sense to go with the local commercial printer, who was giving me a great price, a great turnaround time, and they would be able to do everything I need to do with the covers. So that would save me time too. And even the space of having that machine, it opens up space to, instead putting a dedicated cover machine, I could get another machine for the interiors to double the speed of the interior production. So the covers were done again at Staples. These are just 80-pound glossy covers. And again, these books lay flat. These are exact replicas of the 32-page counterparts. So this is King Cryptid number 1. It's a full color book, and this is King Cryptid number 2, a black and white book. I wanted to have a full color to show and a black and white to show. So these, I did a whole video for them. You can check it out in the campaign if you want. But these are just complete replicas of their full-size counterparts. 32-page books. These are mini books. This is a size that you can get on the campaign if you want your book You know, I got even the ads and stuff in here too. I wanted to do a true to form replica, complete with the flip cover on it and everything like that. You know, so all of that stuff. This is the full color book of number 1, and then this is the black and white book of number 2. You know, everything was done here, folded here, trimmed here, stapled here. The only thing that wasn't done here was the cover, and the covers won't be done here. The covers, even for the larger runs, will be done with that commercial printer, and they'll come out really nice. So something that's nice about this, even on these aren't archival inks. These are just regular dyed inks with this printer, but they don't get off on your fingers. The ink doesn't get on your fingers. And so with the print runs that I'm going to be doing, it's going to be on a really nice printer with all the proper equipment needed to scale production, so it doesn't take like 6 minutes per book in terms of, you know, it prints out, then assemble and trim them and all that. You know, that takes a lot of time. So they're going to be on archival pigment inks, and these things are waterproof, fade resistant. They're set to last for 200 to 400 years. It'll probably last longer than the paper, but a good part about that is that the ink won't get on your fingers. So that's something that I can't say about the newsprint books that we have right now. You know, it's part of printing on cold set web press, is that you get like the silly putty effect. Like the ink will get on your fingers. It's something that I can kind of live without. I'm sure many others can live without that too. And doing it the way I'm going to be doing it, we will live without it. It won't be that way. So these books will actually be of higher quality than the books that I'm currently getting from the commercial printer, in more ways than one, because I can quality control things too. I can't tell you guys how many damages I get. It's usually like 20% in damages. It's brutal. Like if I go to print with 1,000 books, 200 of them are going to be damaged. That hurts, you know. And then you got to deal with the printer about that and hope that they actually acknowledge it. And it's not just damages through shipping. It's damages sometimes right off from the printer, and then they put them in the boxes and they're stacking them in there wrong. Or like I've dealt with printers who will use comics as packing material in the box of comics. Like I'll take a picture of the box and I'll show the printer. I'm like, your guys stuffed the comics in the sides of the box to prevent the comics from moving in the box. Like every box has like 10 to 20 comics damaged because they're stuffing them in the box, in the corners and in the sides, so the comics don't wriggle around in the box. Like, why would they do that? Just use some kind of packing material, any kind of packing material. Like, what are they doing? And, you know, I can't think of more than maybe 2 or 3 print runs I've received that didn't have some kind of near catastrophic level of damage involved. It was worse when we went with distribution. We were with Diamond, because you'd know that if you got something that was like that they damaged a lot of them, that a lot of those books went to distribution. You couldn't do anything about it. When the books come here, at least I can kind of sort through the mess and try to sell them at a discounted price or whatever, which is basically at a loss, because you can't sell them as if they're near mint or anything like that. You gotta sell them as damaged. But even then, it's still an ordeal. But like this, I wouldn't have to deal with that. I wouldn't have to deal with that, and you guys wouldn't have to deal with that either. Because when I ship them, I'd be shipping them in a box that they'll be really protected. They'll be in a box within a box. So if you ordered like a box of 100 or something, right? So I'll put the box of 100 books, and they'll be all like maybe probably 25 per like a wrap and not shrink wrapped, but wrapped together, so that this way they're not just loose in the box. Some packing material around the box, then put that box in another box. It's about an inch around. Put the packing material within the box, so it's a nice protective zone. And this way, when they arrive, nothing could have possibly happened to them other than them getting obliterated during transit. which I mean could happen. And if that happens, we'll deal with it. But nothing that would normally happen could possibly happen that would destroy the books. And I can't tell you how many, and it's that easy. It's just you gotta just pack for the worst case scenario, I guess, when it comes to the heavier of a box that you're shipping, that kind of a thing. Sometimes when customers order a lot of comics, like they'll get the almost all bundle or something like that from the Alterna site, and it's like over 100 books. You know, I'll ship them sometime in like 2 separate boxes, that kind of a thing. So when it comes to shipping and getting comics out to the people who order these print runs, I'm not even concerned about that. That's going to be probably one of the easiest parts of this whole thing. But when it comes to the quality and every book looking great and making sure that they're done right, I like the fact that I could actually know that, yeah, I'm taking a look at each one, making sure that they went through. And the thing is, I'm going to know that they're all okay because I'm involved in every step of the assembly process of it. And it's not as daunting as you might think it sounds like. Some people think I'm putting together cars here by myself, or I'm putting together comic books. It's not going to be that bad. I could probably put together about 50 to 100 a day, and not dedicating my entire day to it, but just with the assembly part. Most of the stuff that's going to be done is going to be done by the machines and the equipment I'm going to have, whether it's the printer, the folding machine, whatever it may be. The most interactive I'll get with it is the trimming with the stack cutter and the stapling. And then that'll be about it. So as far as like labor goes, I hate even using the word because it's not labor. You know, it's me getting involved with it, but there's a lot of times where stuff is printing and I just got to go and make sure it's still printing right. And I go back to doing whatever other work I have to do. So when it comes to the assembly of all this stuff, you know, if we can scale this up, get multiple machines running, especially when it comes to the printers, then that'll be great. You know, I got a couple people that are within an hour or so that if things get real crazy, I could have someone come here and help me out if I need that. But, you know, I'll have to see how that goes. I really can't wait to get all the equipment that I need in so I can actually start testing around with the settings, testing around with the best way to set up the assembly line, as it were. And I really think that it'll go well, but I'm budgeting for the time and the money essentially like double of what I think I'm going to need, because there's going to be replacement parts. I'm budgeting just in case I have to replace a machine. I'm budgeting for all kinds of different things that whenever you do something like this, you got to make sure there's some kind of contingency and a little bit left in the war chest to go and solve a problem if you need to solve it. If I go right to the tilt of like where I got to be, I'm going to come in drastically under, and it's going to take everything more time. It's going to take a dip in quality, and I don't want to do either of those things. So that's why I'm really trying to make sure that we raise the 15 that's needed. And if we can raise more than that, then better. So I'll take a look at the campaign in just a second. But let's see what's up. I want to make sure that I'm saying hello to you guys too. And if you got any questions in the chat before I dive into the campaign at a deeper level, I want to make sure that I'm acknowledging where you guys are coming from. Hojo, what's up, Hojo? Says thank you for doing it on Fund My Comic. Yeah, well, you know, it seems like a good fit. I think it does. You know, Fund My Comic, Print My Comic, it's kind of the same deal. newsprintcomics.com will take you right to the campaign, or you can go to Fund My Comic, and they've been so kind enough to feature it on the main page. What Geeks Do says, not complaining, but I noticed my King Cryptid issue 5 inks were slightly off on a few pages. Doesn't bother me. Yeah, it's all that stuff always bothers me. You know, and I don't mind a little misregistration here or there, but like I said, there's times where it happens on particular pieces, particular pages, like a splash page or something like that, and it's a little gut wrenching and soul crushing on the inside because you want that to really print nice, and when it doesn't, it kind of kills. The other part with that too is there's times where the printer And I've used 5 different web press newsprint printers over the years, and I've had to talk to pretty much all of them about the ink coverage. And on some pages it'll print beautifully, but then you can tell they kind of just didn't really care when there wasn't enough ink being applied, and stuff would fade out. Again, that's not going to be a problem with what I'm doing. So that's something else that I can really avoid, which is I would have more color consistency doing it the way I'm going to be doing it than having a commercial printer handle it. Because also those machines spit things out real fast. So you'll get thousands of copies out within, an hour or less. I'm not going to go anywhere near that fast, so the wait time would be, in a great scenario, roughly 2 weeks for a print run, maybe 3 to 4, depending if it's 100 or 200 copies, something like that. But the wait time would be obviously impacted by the amount of jobs that I have to print at the same time. So if you're in line, you need a job that's 2 months from now or something, and I've got like 10 or 20 jobs ahead of you, I'm probably going to need that full 2 months to get something to you. So this is one of those things where some people have asked, are you going to become a full-time printer? The answer with that is going to be no. I'm going to become a part-time printer, and I'm sometimes going to have to shut down, not press time in terms of the machines not doing what they got to do and me not assembling books, but in terms of taking on jobs, in terms of taking on work and opening things up. So at some points, things are going to shut down and you can't get a print run in. That's not going to happen through the course of this campaign. This campaign, I'm trying to fill like the first year or so worth of jobs. So if you think you're going to print something in a year or two, you want to pre-book the press time now, as opposed to waiting later on. And you can get a print voucher and then use that against your print run when you place that order. So that's how that's going to work out. You're going to get a specific code that you put that in, and then that's what's going to take, like, say you get a $500 print voucher, and you order like 232 page full color books. That's going to be about $500. You would use that print voucher against that print order whenever you placed it. But the thing is like, between the time involved with doing all of it and just the time that I want to have for my creative projects and all the things I have to do already, there's no way that I'm going to be able to, at this point in time, become a full-time printer. Does that mean in like 2 or 3 years, when things have been perfected and the whole thing is obviously proven to be sustainable and all of that, does that mean that I don't expand into a different space, maybe hire a person or two? No, it doesn't mean that. If things are going great and we're in a position to do that, then I'll give that consideration. But I want to start small. I want to make sure that we perfect what we already have, which is the 2 sizes and the newsprint printing, before I even have the tiniest thought of expanding into some other realm. Because if you got to start getting on like different paper stocks and doing that, you got to think about purchasing that in bulk to get the best price, and how you're going to house that. So much of that becomes, now you got to get storage space, now you got to figure out where to put it, now you got to figure out what paper works best, and if you take a paper stock that people don't necessarily want, you could really screw yourself over and completely go belly up. So there's a lot of stuff involved where you hedge your bets. And if I just stick to doing newsprint, floppy, saddle stitch, stapled issues for forever, and that's it, that's fine with me. I don't really care to venture into like perfect bound or hardcover or cardstock covers or embossed covers or foil, or I don't really care for any of that. I don't really see myself needing that. There's a lot of printers out there who'll do that better than me, and who can probably do that in a more cost-effective and timelier fashion than me. But there's no one that can do what I'm going to be doing now, which is newsprint interiors and doing the single issues this way. They lay flat, all of that kind of stuff. There's no one out there that's doing that. Maybe someone eventually will. Who knows? You know, that's part of this. Maybe this inspires other people to look into it and do their own 100 hours or so of research or whatever it may be, and figure, you know, I don't really need Pete's service. I can do this on my own. I only need like 20 copies or something. You know, I'll start small, and that's how it'll be. Nothing wrong with that. You know, I hope it does inspire other people to maybe do this, because the technology is different now than it even was 5 years ago. I didn't think I could have done this 5 years ago. Honestly, I couldn't have done this 5 years ago. The technology is very different now than it was at that point. And even when it was out, it's very, very new. I wouldn't have trusted it. So there's a lot of stuff now that throws the economy of scale in the favor of what I'm doing, as opposed to what it would have done before. And if you're someone who needs like 1,000 or 2,000 copies of a book, stick to the printer that you're going to use, because you're going to get things done in a more timely fashion and probably for a better price. If you're someone who's using like a commercial level printer and you're doing 2, 5, 10,000 copies, this campaign is not for you. That should go without saying. Stick to what you're doing. Fantastic. But if you're someone, there's a lot of indie creators out there that do runs of 200 or less. And between the prices on print on demand going up through the roof and the quality going down and all the other various things that I've talked about already in the past 40 minutes, this will probably be very useful to you. And you can get a print run done at relatively half the cost of maybe what you were getting quoted for. So that's who this person is for, is that sweet spot of an indie creator, 200 comics or less per print run. And they don't mind if they got to wait like 4 to 6 weeks sometime for that print run. They're scheduling things out. They got a crowdfunder, or maybe they know the convention season is going to come up, so they place an order earlier on and they get their books together and all of that. Like that's who this is for. You know, this is a pure indie campaign. And where it goes after this, I don't know. You know, to me, the sky's the limit, but start small. If we start too quickly and expand too fast, the whole thing is going to belly up and it's going to implode before we have any chance to even get this right. So some people have asked about a lot of things. That's why I'm saying I'm going to start small. Massive Panic says, yeah, I'm on the same page as you, Pete. No pun intended. I really don't care for that super glossy stuff, but my printer doesn't offer matte paper. I may start shopping around for other printers. There you go. Let's see here. We got Rex saying black, white, and red all over, pal. You talking Blood Realm? Apex says, if I were to print a full color 24-page 4x6 mini comic, will it be better to use digital printing? Well, I wouldn't be doing 4x6. So you'd be having 5x7.5 as an option, or which is what this is, or you'd be having a standard size like 6 5/8 by 10 1/4. Those would be the two options for sizing. That's something that I have to streamline as well. Offer the sizing, so this way I can set up like the stack cutter. I can set up all that stuff, get that all set of what needs to just stay there with the requirements and the measurements, and do what I got to do, and make sure that everything, I can predict the cost, I can predict the time, I can predict all of that stuff. That's a big thing that goes into this. So you could get 5x7.5 if you'd like. You know, you could do that, and I would recommend doing it from what I'm doing 100%. You're going to find that it's going to be pretty affordable. A 24 pager at 5x7.5, it's going to be very affordable. Full color too. Metatron says, it's just what happens. What a way to not take blame or criticism. Yeah, I got to tell you, when it comes to some of the stuff, I don't mind if a printer or if anyone is just like, because I'll say this too, because it's true sometime of like, that's not something I can do right now, or we don't have the equipment to do that, or we don't have the staff to do that. I get that. I totally understand that. And if they said that to me, that's fine. But when you tell me that, no, every digital printer will do it that way, it's impossible. When you use words like that, and I know that it's possible because I've done it and other people have done it, I got to think like, do you think I'm a fool, or are you the fool? and you don't actually know that it's possible. Either one, it doesn't really make me want to work with you. I don't mind it if people are just people, you know, like they go, we're doing our best, you know, and this is what we can do. We would love if they would lay flat, because that's how comics should be, you know, but we can't. We don't have the setup for that, you know, because then I would come back and tell them, okay, well, you know, and I did tell them, I said, each page needs to be folded individually. If you don't have one of those all-in-one machines, which I'm not going to use, those things will probably take up the whole place. They're huge, and they're very expensive, $30,000 to $50,000 a piece. And even then, there's things about them I don't really like. But if you don't have one of those all-in-one machines that's going to kind of do all the right steps together, and you get the comic looking like what it should look like, then you do have to take that extra step. And they said they don't have those all-in-one machines, that they do have, like, you know, here's a printer and then it spits out the pages, and, you know, but then they take the pages and then they fold them and then they staple them. They put them all together. And that's where you're going wrong. You got to fold them individually and then put them together. And then you get a comic that doesn't do that whole thing. Because when you get comics that look like this, what happens is, let's say you get a whole short box or a long box full of comics like this, you're going to notice that it's going to be really weird when you put all of them in there. You're going to have to, like, start rotating them to alternate the spines. Otherwise, you're going to have a box that just is, like, completely tilted because it keeps bowing out. Same thing when you have a convention. If you put them on the table, you're going to have to alternate them, because otherwise they're going to eventually just cascade. You know, with these, with the way I'm doing it, you can just lay the books on top of each other. Like, they're not going anywhere. You could put 100 up on here. They're going to be fine. If anything, they'll compress even further. You know, but the other way, you put that and it's going to eventually just kind of tip. You know, and you'll see a lot of the times too, what drives me nuts is that there's a lot of actual comics that are being done at commercial printers that look like this now. And when the cover stock is not thicker than the interior stock, or it's like the same weight, what happens is you'll see it happen at a lot of the different new release walls at comic shops. Eventually they start kind of folding on each other. You know, I call them sleepy comics because they look like they're falling asleep. But that shouldn't happen. It never did used to happen. When comics were made the way that they were for the longest time, where, like, the cover stock was relatively twice the thickness or so of the interior stock, and the books laid flat. You had to actually have the books, like, forced over at a midpoint that they would then bend. And obviously, you know, you didn't want to do that. But when the books were just kind of lying there flat on the shelf, they would just do that. They would just be there. You know, they wouldn't eventually succumb to the weight of itself. Citizen Ronan says, I've received some books that aren't folded properly and it just looks cheap. Yeah, you know, and it's unfortunate because it's not the person's fault who's, like, the comic creator. You know, you entrust the printer to do a good job with that. And, you know, there's been times too with printers where, like, and again, you know, the comic creator should know better, but the printer should also have your back, you know. So I would have your back like this. I've noticed that there's sometimes the files that go through to print. On some of the books I've received on crowdfunding, they did not send files that are up to snuff with high resolution print files. They're very pixelated. And as a printer, you should be able to easily spot that. Easily. And you, that's something you shouldn't even need to print that out to spot that is not a correct resolution. You could easily check that. You could check the measurements. You could check everything. It takes like a second or two. And then just fire back an email to be like, look, your files are low res. You got to send high resolution files that are natively high resolution, not just upscale it, because then it's not going to, it'll print it a little better, but it won't print it as good as it should be, especially if you're going from like 72 to 300. You know, if it's like 300 to 400 or 200 to 300, most people probably won't notice. But if you're going from like 72 DPI, which is usually what you would do for like web graphics, and then you're going to try to print that out, you're going to notice a whole big pixelation across the board. And printers should notice these red flags. And obviously a lot of them aren't, based on some of the crowdfunded books I've received. And it obviously is something that the creator of the book, you guys should know first and foremost. Don't do something like that. But everyone makes a mistake. You know, you count on other people to kind of have your back sometime, and the printer should have your back in that situation. So I would have your back in that situation, and that wouldn't be like some extra charge or something. That would just be like me giving you a heads up when the files come in. If I'm like, oh look, they're all sized all weird, and you know they're not a correct resolution, you know, make sure to size them like this, format them like that, and then send the files back to me. You know, so it just takes just something like that. It's very simple. It's not a complicated thing. Let's see. Dr. Matt says, I've received some crowdfunded comics that were bowed like that. Thanks for explaining why. Seems like the printers are lazy or uninformed. You know, sometimes it's a cost-cutting measure, but at what extent? You know, I think that's a really big cost-cutting measure. You know what also is like a cost-cutting measure is like not stapling the book. You know, or not trimming it properly. That's a cost-cutting measure too. But you gotta make it properly. This is part of what it is. And when printers kind of just accept that, nah, that's how it should look. You know, you can't do anything about that. Bullshit. You totally can do something about that. You just don't want to. Let's see. Massive Panda says, man, the artwork in these King Cryptid comics are all beautiful from every artist too. Oh yeah, it's a embarrassment of riches. My cup runneth over with the people involved, and they're the best. Sheldon Martin says, those test pages look very promising. Yeah, man, you're telling me. Apex says, Blood Moon looks cool. Thank you, man. He says you could definitely auction off those mini comics. That's what some people have told me. I don't know. We'll see. Right now, I need them for promotional and research purposes. But we'll see when I'm all done with that. Who knows? Massive says, well, props to you for doing these calculations, Pete, with the commercial versus indie printers and outsourced covers and whatnot. I feel like this would give me the biggest headache. This is my life. You know what I mean? This is my life. This is my love. This is my purpose. So this is all I do. You know, so it's not like, you know, I got nothing better to do. I couldn't think of anything better to do. I love this stuff. You know, this is just what I love. We all love something different that you know, you wake up in the morning for it. You get excited by it. You know, it really it fills you with that feeling, that sense of fulfillment and achievement and striving for something. And I've had so many thoughts over the years where I'm just like, you know, there's such a glut of publishers, but just not enough quality printers, especially in print on demand. And I'm just always thinking like I should have just went that road. You know, I could have still put out my own books. I still could have, you know, helped publish people's work. But more importantly, what people need than a publisher, especially right now, is they need something like this. They need a high quality print on demand, short run printer. And they can get their books done affordably and hopefully maybe pass on that savings to the customer, or do whatever they want to do. You know, it's up to them. But they need books that they can be proud of. And newsprint is just, it's synonymous with comics. It is so comics to me. I know it's that way for a lot of you guys too. So I'd love to be able to offer that to as many people as I possibly can. What Geeks Do says, very cool. Let's see. Citizen says, I'm amazed at how great these came out. Yeah, I am too. Rex says, I really like the mini comics. Yeah, I think honestly, I would love to do a mini comics alternate line of all of the ones we have and print a mini comic style. Because even though they're smaller, like they're still really easy to read too. And they're kind of like manga size. Manga doesn't really have, it's very similar to standard comic size. There really isn't like a standard comic size. It's like around those measurements. It's around 6 5/8 by 10 1/4. That's largely what most people use, you know, and it's changed over the years, obviously, depending on what age of comics you're talking about. Manga is relatively 5 by 7.5, you know, so maybe there's a whole other audience that can be found too with that size of a book. And like I said, they surprisingly read really well, even though the text is a little smaller. Adam Warlock says, are those ash can size? Yeah, relatively ash can size. Yeah. Citizen given a checkup. I haven't even checked the campaign at all yet. It says 1719 so far, and that was at 926. Wow. So that was about a half hour ago. Massive Panda says, yeah, I'm willing to let a few things slide here and there, but ink rubbing off on your fingers, yeah, not a big fan. I know, me either. It's one of those necessary evils when it comes to a lot of that stuff with cold set web press newsprint printing. If you do heat set web press, it's affordable. If you do like 10,000 minimum, it's near impossible if you do less than that amount. Like most printers won't even take the job because they'll say, look, 2,000 comics is going to cost you like 12 grand. That's not good, right? Like they're going to just assume like that's kind of crazy, right? And they're right, it is. Like the price does not budge on heat set web press, which is a whole other process, very similar to cold set, but heat set uses a different technology to bond the ink to the paper, and it usually it's UV activated ink that then is UV treated, and it bonds with the paper, and it becomes it doesn't rub off on your fingers or anything like that, and it lasts longer. It's usually a bit brighter, and that kind of a thing. A lot of magazines that they're printing sometimes millions, they'll use heat set web press. Even some of the bigger comic companies, they should use heat set web press. They have print runs that definitely could justify it. So cold set, it's a lot more affordable if you do runs around like 1,000 or 2,000, but there's not that many of them around anymore, especially ones that'll actually have a separate cover stock and that will also staple the book. A lot of cold set web press printers are ones that create grocery store flyers or newspapers. So they don't have the technology to staple. They just fold it. It's a whole other side of the machinery. Let's see here. Scrolling down, making sure I got everything here. Okay. Let's see. Lord Tapman says, heard about your comics through Ethan Van Sciver. Looks interesting. Gonna have to get some. I appreciate that. Thank you, man. Let's see. 10.8 says open window printing. Let's see here. Wismore says, would it be too much proprietary information to share the model of printer you plan on using? It honestly would. And the only reason I say this, because I've thought about like, oh, maybe I should let everyone know exactly what I'm using. Like personally, I wouldn't have a problem with that if the world were a bit different. But I have had, and still do have, people who are constantly trying to take me down. And I'm not trying to say this like in an exaggerated way. We had people, like when we were doing the printing partnership program, or even before that, I used to readily share what printer we use. I even used to let the Alterna guys know. None of the Alterna guys know what printers I use right now. None of them. They don't know what newsprint printer I use. And I need that plausible deniability, because I've had people, and I got messages, phone calls, emails from the printers I've used before that wanted to stop working with me because they got calls from people. So the last thing I need is, now I'm kind of stepping on the toes of printing companies too. I'm not just stepping on the toes of like comic industry crap. I'm stepping on the toes of something that potentially could break open the dam for a lot of people. And if I were to let people know exactly what I'm doing, and let's say what I'm doing really takes off, I'd rather it just be me having to kind of cover my ass with stuff than having to constantly worry that, well, I let people know whatever. Are they going to get through to someone and like cut off my supply chain? Are they going to try to cancel what I'm doing? Cancel me, cancel what I'm doing here, whatever it may be. I can't go through that. I've gone through that stuff with enough of the printers that I've used before over the past 8 years. Like, it's crazy, among other things. So, I'll say this, the stuff I'm using, you do enough research, you could find out multiple avenues of how to do what I'm doing and make it work for you. It's all out there. It's all, none of what I'm getting is like some clandestine, you got to have a big contract, you got to have a commercial vendor kind of licensing or this and that. None of it is like that. All of it, you can do research for what I've talked about before, which is like printing, folding, trimming, stapling, stacking, all of that type of stuff. You could do all the research for that and figure it out on what would work best for you. And then like multiply that by like 3. And then you'll get roughly what I'm talking about. And then price that out for a year or 2 in terms of the paper and the supplies and the ink and everything else. And then you'll get roughly around what my campaign goal is. But I'm not going to, I wish I could. I wish the world was different. I wish I didn't have to worry about stuff like that. But I have to. Massive says, to be honest, Pete, 4 to 6 weeks ain't that bad at all. I had a printer who left me hanging for months. Yeah, you and me both. So yeah, I'm thinking 4 to 6 weeks ain't too bad. And that won't be for everybody, obviously. Some print runs take pretty quick. Like I could probably do a 25 print run within a day or 2. Print them out one day and then assemble them the next and then ship them out. So stuff like that wouldn't be too fast. I mean, too slow or too difficult at all. Wayne says, pledge for those sample books. No, it ain't much, but keep doing what you do, man. I appreciate it. Well, that's why they're there. I'll get into the campaign in just a second. And I know I'm probably getting people going crazy with this. All right. So I got to do this. Let's just jump into the campaign here. And I appreciate that, Tank Ferret. Thank you. Been doing this for almost 20 years. This is our 19th year. Okay, so finally getting into explaining the campaign and showing it off. All right, so here we are. Let me do a quick refresh. So the campaign is almost at $2,000. Fantastic. 16 backers on board. We're at 1,952 raised. Thank you guys very much. This is only on Fund My Comic. This is not on the Alterna site right now. Eventually, the whole ordering portal will be on the Alterna site, but that'll be sometimes around like late June, maybe. That won't be immediate. This campaign's going to be going for a month till June 8th. Get everything on here so we can make this a reality. So right now we're a little bit under 2,000. Fantastic. Okay, so about the campaign, I'm just going to read this through for you guys. I'm Peter Samedian. For the past 19 years, I've been the publisher of Alterna Comics, a creator-owned comic company that I founded in 2006. I'm also the creator-writer of the ongoing monster mystery series King Cryptid and the psychological thriller graphic novel The Chair, which was adapted to a film that starred the late wrestling legend Roddy Piper. As publisher at Alterna, I've worked with over a dozen printers to print over 1 million comics and graphic novels. I'm a degree graphic designer, and before founding Alterna, I worked in 3 print shops, 2 sign shops, and a copy center. After experiencing a variety of sometimes near catastrophic printer damages, delays, misprints, and more, coupled with the rising costs and longer wait times on printing, I finally decided that it's time to start printing our single-issue newsprint comics in-house. To fund the startup costs of purchasing the necessary equipment, I'll be offering this service to other creators as well, both on this campaign and after it. Here's a quick proof of concept video. So this is just a video showing off the full color mini comic and then the black and white mini comic. The details. So we got saddle stitch stapled spine books. That's what they're technically called, as a saddle stitch book, if you weren't familiar. 2 sizes available. There's a mini 5 by 7.5 inches and a standard 6.625 by 10 1/4 or 6 5/8 instead of 6.625. Newsprint interiors, either full color or black and white, depending on the comic. Gloss covers will be outsourced to a local commercial printer. Archival inks will be used, which means that the ink will be waterproof, fade resistant, and won't get on your fingers. Short runs of 200 or less. Price breaks offered at $25, $50, $100, $150, and $200. Page counts from 8 to 48 pages, increments of 4. Covers do not count towards page count. And something I wanted to talk about with the price break too. So say you order 29 copies, or you order 40 copies, you'll be at the pricing of 25. If you ordered 50, you'll be at the pricing of 50 to 100, or 50 to 99, I should say. So if you order 80 copies, you're going to get the same price per copy at the 50 level that you would at the 80 copy level. Sometimes it might benefit you to just go up to 100, because you might realize, like, wow, if I ordered, and I don't know the exact math here off the top of my head, but if you figured like I ordered 80, if I just ordered 100 to be the same amount of money, you basically get like 20 for free. You might as well do that. So that's how that price break would work. You get a digital proof provided for free with every order. Printed proofs are $25 plus shipping upon request. Print vouchers can be purchased on the campaign and redeemed later on when a customer places a print order. Use the price list below to find out how much your print run will cost before shipping. There's no expiration date on the print voucher, and they are good for the life of this service. Now, here's something else. Backers will have a choice of refund or store credit on alternacomics.com for an unused voucher if the service is no longer available. So if this whole thing implodes for some ungodly reason, which I don't foresee it to happen, but if it does, you will either have a choice of getting a full refund back for what you paid. Let's say you get a $200 voucher and you didn't use it, the service no longer available, you'd like a full refund, you get a full refund. Or you can get store credit on alternacomics.com. So in that case, you would get the $200 plus 20% additional as a store credit. So you would get a complete store credit of $240 to use on alternacomics.com. That's your choice, though. You choose whatever you'd like to choose at that point, if that were to happen. Otherwise, it says outside of this specific circumstance, the voucher is non-refundable. The voucher will be converted into either a refund equivalent to the exact amount of the voucher purchased, or converted into store credit plus 20% of voucher value for products at alternacomics.com. So if someone is really concerned, well, what happens if, Pete completely, drops the ball here? What happens with the voucher I purchased? Well, you'll get a refund for the cash value, or you can get store credit. But honestly, I don't foresee that happening in terms of this service not being available. I'm hoping to have this service available for a very long time, if not for the rest of my comic creating days. Formatting. So the resolution is between 300 to 600 DPI. That's what you could send your files in. This is what all this stuff pertains to. CMYK for color pages, grayscale for black and white pages. Trim size 5 by 7.5 for the mini, 6.625 by 10.25 for standard. The bleed is the art going to the edge of the page, and that gets trimmed. So it technically goes past the trim size, and it would go past an additional 1/8 of an inch. So you add 0.125 on each side of the page, 1/4 of an inch overall. So your whole page size would look more like 5 1/4 by 7 3/4, and the other one would look like 6.875 by 10.5. If you don't know what full bleed is, after this, go read about what full bleed is. You got to make sure you know what these things are if you're going to go into production. Arm yourself with this kind of knowledge. This way you know to avoid certain mistakes, and you know how to communicate with the printer or whatever kind of production you end up utilizing. Art on a full bleed page should go to the edge. Text and important elements should not go past 4.5 by 7 inches on the mini and 6 by 9.5 on the standard. When you do get a print run job, I'm going to have a template that I send to you as well of make sure that everything is within these zones. So all of that will be taken care of once the campaign ends. On a double page spread, send it as 2 separate page files. Don't send it as one huge double page spread. On the text, 100% black text. Make sure that the text does not contain cyan, magenta, or yellow. The reason for that being, if you have those 3 colors in the black text, you're going to have like a fuzzier print on your black text. The way I'm doing it, you don't really have misregistration that occurs, but you will have blotchier text print than what it should be. The ink coverage, 220 or less. No part of the page should contain over 220 CMYK out of a possible 400. So on the cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, they could be 100%. That gives you a 400 total on your ink coverage. You want to make sure that out of those 4 colors, it does not go past 220 any part of the page. Usually you're only talking about, for the most part, like black being one of the colors that could go past that point, or a very dark color. But you really shouldn't have that kind of ink coverage on your file when you're sending that in. And honestly, if you do, I can correct that for you, but it would be a charge, a graphic design charge per file. It'd be better if you just set up your files properly. On the file format, TIFF or PDF is fine. Now we got the price list here. I'm not going to go over the price list copy by copy, page by page. There's a lot of numbers on here. An easy way to read it, on the far left side, that column, you've got the pages of the book. Again, they're in increments of 4, from 8 to 48. So you got 8, 12, 16, 20, etc. On the top of the row there, you've got the different counts of books with the price break. So there's 25 full color, 25 black and white, 50 full color, 50 black and white, etc., up to 200. You'll see when you correlate the price with the copies and the pages, that's how you can multiply and get how much that would cost for the overall run. And shipping, for the most part, shipping is going to be like roughly around like $20 or so in the US, maybe a little more depending. And then international, I'll have to quote you on it. It's going to cost obviously more than $20, but I'll still send out orders internationally if you'd like to. Usually that ranges anywhere between like $40 to maybe $70, $80, something like that. If it's like 200 of them, it's probably going to get into the $100 range on shipping for international, outside the US, outside Canada. So on this here, the price list, for example, this is the top one is the mini comic, 5 by 7.5 inches. A really popular size for a comic is the 32 pages. So if you were to get 25 copies in full color of a 32 page book at a mini comic, it'd be $403. Black and white, same amount of copies would be $255. Huge price break once you hit 50. At 50 for a 32 pager mini comic, $275. Black and white, $191. At 100, $211, $159. $150, $190 a copy in color to $149 black and white. $200, $1.79 a copy on a 32 pager in full color for the mini comic, and then $1.43 a copy for black and white. Now for the standard size comic, the 32 pager, it's more, but not a tremendous amount more. $480 for 25 in full color of a 32 page comic, $317 for a black and white 25 copies. At 50 copies, it goes down to $352 for a full color book, $253 for a black and white 50 copies. At 100 copies, it goes down to $288 for a full color book, $221 for black and white, $267 for 150 copies in full color, $210 for 150 of black and white, $256 for 200 copies of a full color book, $205 for 200 in black and white, 32 pager. So that means it costs about $400 for 200 copies of a black and white 32 page book. It would cost about $500 for 200 copies of a full color 32 page book. And again, this does not include shipping. It is all inclusive though. Other than that, it counts the cover and everything. So that's the whole book there. Obviously, if the page count is more or less than 32, if it's less, the cost per book will be less. If it's more, the cost per book will be more. There's 2 videos here. They're both just like flip throughs the entire comic. So one of them I'm flipping through the color comic, which is King Cryptid #1. The other one I'm flipping through the black and white of King Cryptid #2. And then here we go with the excess verbiage. So if you'd like a longer and more complete rundown on what led me to this decision, feel free to continue reading below. I've roughly said everything that's already in here, so I'm going to spare you me reading this entire thing and you hearing it again. If you would like to read it, you can read it. It's on the Fund My Comic page. But here's some images. I've showed them to you pretty much already, but just so you can see, I got the test print, then I got a color test print on a clean sheet. I got a black test print on a clean sheet as well. I showcased the bowing of the spine on the book from the digital printer compared to what I did to treat it. That's just me telling you guys that, hey, look, I know how to make your books lay flat. I know how to make the book look the way it should look. So much so that I can manipulate what another printer had already done and get it to look right. So that's just me showing you guys that, it's kind of like, hey, trust me, I know what I'm doing. This image also is the same kind of thing of like, hey, trust me, I know what I'm doing. I got the book #1 is the digital printer book, and then 2, 3, and 4 are the ones I've made. They all lay flat. They're all fine. This one here is a black test print mini page on a clean sheet of newsprint. And then this is like a close-up, so you can take a look at the text and all of that. None of these images have been altered. None of these images, the levels have been adjusted. No Photoshop involved, no filters involved. These are straight from the camera, uploaded, and then superimposing the text block on there, just to explain the caption of what this image actually is. So all of this stuff, again, I went over this already. I've talked about this in the start of the show. The mini goals and the stretch goals, I have not talked about this yet, so I'm going to go through this. While the overall goal is $15,000 to get all of the equipment, machinery, and supplies that I need to get up and running for the first year of operation. That's very important. I want to get the first year is the hardest year with any new venture of anything. I want to make sure I've got everything I need and some. So this way, any bumps in the road, I can meet them and they won't be catastrophic failures. I'll be purchasing different pieces as we reach certain milestones on the campaign. These mini goals will allow me to get things going as quickly as possible while the campaign is still up and running. So when we reach $5,000 on the campaign, we can have like a mini celebration here, because I'm going to get the standard comic printer, the one that prints the 11x17 size I need, and enough ink and paper to get started. So I've got 3 different newsprint bundles I want to try out to make sure, which one is the best before I go all in and purchasing a bulk order. So I got 3 different ones I want to try out, and then I'm going to purchase probably like 2 or 3, probably 3 extra ink sets to have, so I can get everything I need once I get that bulk order of paper going. But within that $5,000, that bulk order of paper is already included in there. I just want to make sure I start off with the 3 different paper stocks first before I commit to the larger purchase. $7,500, the mini comic printer, and additional ink and paper for that printer. So I'm going to have 2 separate printers, one for the larger, normal, standard size comic, and one for the mini comic. This way, I can actually get multiple print runs done. Now, let me read the next one before I elaborate on that comment. $10,000, I get a stack cutter, a creasing machine, and a paper trimmer, along with a set of replacement parts for those pieces. So this is just normal print shop type stuff. All of them are going to be at an industrial commercial level, and the replacement parts, which is obviously very important for this kind of stuff. We're talking about like blades and mats and cutting stick and all this other kind of stuff that wears and tears over the course of time. I'll be purchasing those spare parts, so I have them. ready to go in case something happens. I don't have to worry about those parts being out of stock. I don't have to worry about ordering them and waiting. In case I need them, I have them. At $12,500, a paper folding machine. These suckers are expensive. They're like $1,000 to $2,000. But they are the key piece in all of this. Especially to get one that'll do the large format type paper. You know, you can get one for like $500 to $600 that'll do letter size or legal size paper, but I need ones that I could put the big sheet 11 by 17 or 12 by 18 through, and it'll fold it. And I gotta get a good machine too. So that is what that's going to be about. And at $12,500, I could purchase that. At $15,000, I can get a year's worth now of ink, paper, staples, shipping boxes, and replacement parts. So I can now kind of double to triple up everything that I've bought along the way to have all the supplies I need for the rest of the year, in anticipation of doing roughly around 100 print runs or so. So 100 different jobs for people. That's kind of what I'm estimating the first year is going to be about. Stretch goals on the campaign. These stretch goals will enable me to stock up on supplies, which helps keep prices low. Because the more I can purchase of certain things, especially supplies, especially paper, the more I can purchase that now, because that stuff always goes up in price, the more I can keep prices low for as long as I can. Like, I'd like to keep prices relatively the same for 2, 3, maybe even 4 years if possible. And the only real way I could do that is by purchasing enough. Now, I can't purchase a tremendous amount of ink right away, because what happens with some of the inks is eventually they settle and they get a little weird being in their plastic bottles. They do have an expiration date to them. So I'll purchase enough for maybe 2 or 3 years, but I can't purchase like 5, 6, or 7 years worth of ink. But hopefully after 2 years easily, like, this will be a sustainable thing where that won't be a problem. It'll just be about maintaining the machines, maybe replace the machine every now and then if I need to, and then get the ink and the whatever other supplies I would need to get down the road past that 2 or 3 year mark. At $20,000, I can get a second standard comic printer. So that'll expedite the production process to make the bigger comics. At $23,000, I can get a second mini comic printer. So now I'll have technically 4 printers, 2 for the mini comics, 2 for the standard. That'll really increase production time with things, because I think the mini comics are going to become popular too. $25,000 additional storage space needed to house supplies and paper. So this is when I'm purchasing more of everything in bulk, and I'm going to need more space to house that stuff. So that's what that money will go towards helping. Purchasing more things for supplies and paper, and also purchasing storage space. I got 25,000 there twice. I think it's because it applies to both. Yeah, it applies to both. The 2 years worth of paper, ink, staples, shipping boxes. So I get the storage space and I get 2 years worth of all the stuff I need. $30,000, enough funds to purchase any additional machinery and equipment if the situation arises. So heaven forbid, a printer breaks down, I got to replace a printer, whatever it might be. That's the war chest I'm talking about, where I can just dig into that. Heaven forbid, again, within the first year or two, I have some kind of catastrophic failure with one of the machines. This way, it's not like, oh man, now what do I do? It'll be there. The funds will be there. That'll be great. So that's at the $30,000 mark. If we reach 30K, I'll announce a stretch goal for 50K and 100K. And I got to say, if we reach 100K, I'm really going to start considering big time taking this out of where I'm at and getting a small office space kind of a thing and getting everything set up over there and possibly doing it full time. Because at that point, and not saying full time and then I stopped doing alternate, I stopped doing King Cryptid, but one of those things where I dedicate way more of my time to it instead of like a 5-hour a day part-time job, essentially giving it like 8 or 9 hours a day, and a lot of that time is waiting around because you got to wait till the stuff is printed, you know. So in between that, I can always do whatever else I got to do. I can always write, I can always draw, I can always get other things going. So it's not like I'm sitting there for 8 or 9 hours as a book is printing and doing nothing but staring at the printer and looking at every page that comes out, you know. So we'll see, but that's at the 100K mark. And at that point, the people have spoken. But I don't know if we'll get to that. I'm hoping we just get to 15. That would be great. I think if we get to 15, I got the whole first year kind of planned out. We can get the multiple machines. I can get all the stuff that I need. I can get all the paper and supplies I need. And hopefully it's sustainable year after year after that point, because the hardest part of all of this is getting set up and is getting everything all together, because I don't know about you, but I don't have 15 grand right off the bat. I'm lucky if I even have one half the time, because them margins are tight in this industry and they're getting tighter, and it's tough sometimes to go through it. So if you're making comics, you know what I'm talking about. All right, so wow, we're at 2,244. Fantastic. So we are halfway towards that first mini goal. That's awesome. Thank you guys so much. I'm hoping that this campaign helps get comics out there to a lot of people and helps them get their comic books made at a price that they didn't think was going to be possible for them. I've already had a lot of people come in and say that they were going to get a comic done and it was going to be like $6 a piece. And they're like, I'm looking at your campaign and I can get that same comic done for like $250. You know, like that's great, you know, and that's a huge savings to them. It increases their ability, hopefully, to be able to sell their book, because then they can lower their cover price or whatever they want to do. If they leave it alone, they can leave it alone. But then hopefully that enables them to make more money every time that they sell a book. You know, every penny you can get in this industry is great, and it's worth fighting for. As crazy as it sounds to say that, but printing is a big factor with all those things. All right, so I'm gonna open up at this point. This is a longer show tonight. We'll do a 2-hour show. I'm gonna open up the floor to you guys. If you do want to join, if you do have any questions or anything like that for me that you want to ask live while I'm here, we'll be going for like another half hour. There's the links if you want to pop in and say something. All right, let me see. I got to really scroll back and make sure I didn't miss anything here. Let's see. Here's one I see right now. Around 10 o'clock is when I started reading that campaign. And if I did miss something that you wanted to ask in the chat, you don't have to join me on air if you want. You can if you want, but you don't have to. If I didn't answer your question, please don't feel like you're being obnoxious about it. Repeat it until I see it. R2D2 for Life says, will you be able to offer print-on-demand services for traditional books or magazines in the future akin to Amazon, in addition to comics on newsprint? I would be able to. I don't know if I will. Those are two different things. You know, I have to really see. So I have to make sure that I've mastered the setup of what I've got, and that, you know, it's because this is the thing. If I have like a never-ending list of people coming in and getting print projects done with what I'm already doing, it makes no sense for me to expand. The only reason it would make sense to expand or to take on a different way of doing it, or a different paper stock, or a different format, a different size, is if the one that's currently going on right now, there's no customers for it. So if there's a lot of customers for it and I've got more than enough work, then I'm not expanding, because I need to meet the obligations and the jobs I already have. But if that ends, then I'd have to look and see, okay, I have all this stuff, I got to offer something different. So that's a question where, you know, there's so many variables and what ifs at play, I'm not even going to think about. any of that at this point. So big difference between like I can do it. Like if I had to do it, I know what to do. I can do it. But does it make sense to do it? That's a whole different thing. Citizen Ronan says, in other words, Pete is using the dark arts. He'll need a lock of your hair to get the print run done. I don't know what that reference is, but that's hilarious. Let's see. Rex says, turns out he kept the contents of that strange package around. Oh, man, that one, don't even... Dark matter lamp or whatever that weirdo sent me. Dude, it was weird. We had a lot of weird things going on until I threw that thing out. Metatron says, the ink reservoir requires blood. Basically, ink, like ounce for ounce, is more expensive than oil. It might even be more expensive than blood, especially if you're talking about cartridge-based printing. Holy smokes. I'm not going to be using a cartridge-based printer. I'm going to be using a tank-based printer. But it's unbelievably expensive. Unbelievably. Now, it probably doesn't cost anything close like that to make. But to purchase it, holy smokes. Tank Ferret says, holy smokes, it really has been that long. 19 years. Yeah, 19 years, brother. Yeah, it started this in 2006. It's been that long. M Studio says, how do I advertise in your book? Advertise in my book? Well, we usually have advertising for sale, but all of the ad spots are sold right now. So it would be on the advertising section of the Alterna Comics site. But like I said, all the spots are sold right now. We'll probably have, and this is the fun part. This is something that I didn't really consider until it really hit me that this is going to be a reality. I could have just the bare minimum level of goals now when I do pre-order campaigns for the single issue comics, because I don't have to send a huge print run to the web press printer. So it changes the dynamics of the whole thing. I don't have to have a massive inventory. I can just print like an extra 10 or 20% on top of what I'm already going to print to fulfill pre-orders, and then just have those for the customers that come in, and then just do whatever printing I need to do when the time comes. And again, these books are going to look like nearly indistinguishable from the previous ones. The only way that you could tell that they're different is I honestly think you're going to feel like these look better. They look better and the ink doesn't get on your hands. And that's how you're going to be able to tell that they're different. But otherwise, they're going to still look fantastic. They're going to still be sized just like a comic book. They're going to still feel just like the comics we've been making. Basically the same interior stock. Practically, it might actually be identical. The cover, everything about it is going to be the same or better. But on these, like on It Came Out on a Wednesday, 22 and 23, which are the next two issues for that series, it's going to be different. Unit 44 even, with 11 and 12. We can just have a low goal and just kind of treat it like a pre-order campaign. We don't have to have a goal where I got to meet and make sure that I got enough money to send this big print run to the printer. It's crazy. And it changes the logistics of so many things of what I need to do to operate. Now, when it comes to like the graphic novels or the Alterna remastered books, which are, I got a new printer for those, left the printer that we were going to do these with, because that's the printer that I was testing out. And then I was like, I'm not doing that. We're not taking those books there. So I got a new printer for the Alterna remastered, and we got the Hall of Fame books. For those books that are on upgraded paper stocks, or it's a different formatting, a different binding, that will be a different printer that we'll use. I'm not going to make those in-house. I'm only going to make the newsprint comics in-house. I just want to specify that. So in case there's any kind of confusion on that, not everything is being made in-house, but largely that's what we put out. We put out the single issues on newsprint. That's like 80 to 90% of the comic formats that we do is that. So I'll be able to bring all those in-house. And it changes the dynamic, it changes the logistics, it changes the whole thing on selling those and getting a print run together for those. So it's pretty exciting. I'm very excited about it because that means that, you know, I don't have to have as many books, considering, like, if I look at, like, let's say, I don't know, it came out on Wednesday 22 or something, does really poorly. And I got to consider, like, wow, I guess I can't justify printing that. You know, I had to print like 1,000 of these. Now I got to print 2,000, which is not possible. But back in the day, a year ago, had to print like 1,000, let's say. And if I look at it and I go, man, I only sold like 200. I can't justify that print run sitting on like 800 of these. If only 200 sold in pre-order, you know, if half of them sell through, then that's good. Like 500 sell through, then I'll have 500. 100 are going to be damaged. I already know that. Easily 100 will be damaged. Maybe 200 will be damaged. And then I'll have like 300 to 400. There'll be wiggle room to have comics to sell for the next, you know, 3 or 4 years. But if I had to look at 800 of those, I couldn't justify that print run. Now I'm going to have to look at like 16 to 1,700 of those. It's impossible because of the way that the minimums and the cost structure has gone up with printing, for us anyway. But like this, I don't have to do that. We don't have to have that. You know, so 200, 300 copies could sell. That's fantastic. You know, I'll print up like 350 or, you know, 300 sell, and that'll be that. And I'll reprint them as I need to. This is a very different structure moving forward. Paula says, very excited about this. I love newsprint. Oh, thank you, Paula. Appreciate that. Apex says, order 200 copies of 5x7.5 full color. Go for it. Did you order it, or did you say that you will? Now, you can't order a specific print run. You know, that's what I should go over. Stupid me. The perks. So, the $25 perk, which is the featured perk, more or less. This is a sample of your comic. So if you've got a comic ready to go that's between 8 pages to 48 pages, full color or black and white, you would get a sample of it as a mini and a sample of it in full size. And you can look at that and go, okay, you know, I'll order this amount in the future. So if you're very hesitant on this, this is probably the perk for you before you dive in and get a larger print voucher. If you've got more faith in me and what I've been talking about and what I've been showing, jump right in, get a print voucher, and you're ready to go when the time comes, which will be, again, towards the end of June, around June 22nd or so. But if you want to be conservative about it, get a $25 sample comic. Even if you want to just use that, and this is a campaign exclusive because it's basically a proof of both, essentially. Even if you just want to use that as some kind of one-of-one proof copy kind of a thing, you can always sell it on a campaign you do or keep it, whatever. It's up to you. But that's what this would be. And I won't be offering that pricing on both of these again. Proofs on the future runs are going to be $25 each. $10 here, it's a sample pack. So for $10 you get a sample comic that's very similar to the one that I had showed before that has all the different alternate pages in it, but it's going to be a higher quality sample pack. So you would get a standard size comic and you would get a mini comic, and it would have that cover on it. King Cryptid wants you to make comics. And the inside front cover would have a price break table for full color books. The inside back cover would have that same table pricing for black and white books, and the back cover of it would have information about file formatting and a template on how to structure your book. So it's kind of a useful sample pack. In addition to, you get to see the different art styles that can be printed, and it can handle any art style you throw at it. Let's see, at the $30 mark, you get the Comics Are Better on newsprint shirt. And this is 100% cotton from small to 3XL, true to size for the shirts. And you get a bumper sticker 9x3. Keep your distance. I like to sniff old comics. Just being cheeky. $35, you can get a sketch card commission. So you can get any character you want on 3 different cardstocks that are available. So if you get any character, you can get it on my personal cardstock, which is just a blank front, and on the back of it, it's just my personal cardstock. It's not a blank back, but it's got just like fun information and a place where I could sign. And then if you want an alternate character, you can get it on alternate comics cardstock. If you want a King Cryptid character, you can get it on King Cryptid cardstock. And those are the examples that are shown, and roughly basically what your piece would look like. It depends on the character. I'll do either a half body or full body type drawing with a little bit of a scene, and I only have 30 available on that. So that's probably one of the only perks, if not the only perk, that's actually limited. The print vouchers. So I've got ones at 50, 75, 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, 350, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, and 1,000. So if you purchase these, you're going to get, when the campaign ends, you're going to get a digital code emailed to you. Newsprintcomics.com will be the site address that takes you to the print ordering portal. It's going to be also a part of the Alterna Comics site. Basically, it's going to become like alternacomics.com/printing, but newsprintcomics.com will take you right to that section. And then that code can be redeemed on the checkout when you put your whole print order through. So if you got like a $500 voucher and your order was $600, it would take $500 off, and that includes the shipping and everything like that. So let's say it's $600 with the shipping, with everything you're getting. It would take the $500 off of that print order, and you'd be left with a $100 balance. Now, if your order is $400 and you have a $500 voucher, what happens is that it might either reject the voucher, or it might take all of it and leave you with a balance. In any case, if that happens where it takes the whole thing, it should leave you with a balance still. But if it still takes all of it, and doesn't give you a balance, I will send you another voucher with the remaining balance there. But the vouchers that I'm sending should act more like a gift card. So it should retain a balance for you. But if I can't make it that way, don't worry, you're not going to lose your balance. I'll send you another code with an updated balance. So I hope that makes sense to you. So that'll be that. That part of it is unfortunately a little bit out of my control in terms of how to redeem that. That's how it goes with our web service provider. We're at 2318. Thank you guys very much. So we're getting closer and closer to we're now past the halfway point towards that $5,000 mini goal, and we're getting there, and it's getting exciting. It's gonna start getting real. Thank you guys very much. All right, so let me go back into the chat here and take a look at what you guys are up to. Again, if you did want to join me, I'm putting the link one more time. I'm going to be on for another 15-ish or so minutes. Let's see. Dr. Mass is just back. Pete, thank you very much, Doc. Appreciate that. And again, this is from roughly 40 minutes, a half hour ago. Cam says, backed. Best wishes for a cool idea. Thank you very much, Cam. I appreciate that. Rex says, I have such bad luck with printers. I'm going to start handwriting everything and staple it together with some unique art for each cover. Sell it on the street like a crazy person. Well, that's always an option, man. Let's see here. R2's giving the price update there at 1021. Citizen says, crazy Simeti, his prices are so low, he's practically giving it all away. Let's see here. Doc says, I just want to hear Pete say, stop the presses. I practically had to say that once or twice over the years. Jeez. Let's see. Randy says 30 days. Don't you think 60 would be better? Why would 60 be better? Why would 60 be better than 30? Huh? Nah. If I can't raise the 15 grand in 30 days, I don't think there's much hope of it being raised in 60. Kevin says, definitely going to snap a shirt and a sketch. Love the forward direction you're taking, Pete. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that, man. Let's see. Kel Razor says, I'm a normal sized comic guy and not familiar with the mini comic market. Is there a demand for mini comics? That's kind of what I'm seeing. There's always been kind of a demand for that. And if you think about the fact that manga is kind of kicking the butt of American comics, one of the factors is that's relatively manga size, 5 by 7.5. But there's always been mini comics. I've seen them at a ton of different shows over the years and things like that. It might not be as commercially popular, like through distribution and stuff like that, but it's definitely like an indie thing, that's for sure. Let's see here. We got Captain Goodnight says the campaign link pinned to the top of the chat is correct, but the link in the description is missing the end. Oh, let me see if I can give that an update. Oh, I can't do it yet. I'll change that afterwards. Let's see. Wistmore says, rock on. We got an encore level performance to match our excitement. Dale says, there's some questions over on the alternate channel stream too. Let me see if I can get to them. Let's see. Citizen Ronan says, we need newsprint men's adventure magazines again. I want to learn television repair. Randy says, will the lower the price of your comics currently? No, it won't lower the prices of the comics. If anything, I still predict that we're probably going to have to raise the price and leave it at a standard of between $250 to $299. I got to make sure again on the pricing structure across the board for what we're doing. But we're still going to have, relatively speaking, the lowest priced comics for new comic books among just about anybody in the entire comics industry. It definitely won't raise the prices to $4.99 to $5.99, which is what I thought we would have to do and take them away from newsprint. What Geeks Do says, Blood Moon printing in-house? No, Blood Moon is going to be a graphic novel, so that's going to go to an outsourced commercial printer. Cole King says, hey, brother, super late to this one. I'll be backing for sure. Just got to get more info about my house situation before I do. Oh, I completely understand, man. I completely understand. The campaign will be up till June 8th, so you got time. You got time. Ellie says, yeah, I'm going to back next paycheck, which is 2 weeks away. There you go. You got time. Appreciate that, Ellie. Apex says, I'm thinking of ordering it. Oh, you're thinking of ordering yeah. Just do the math on the price list. If you want 200 copies of a 24-pager and the mini comic, just multiply that, and then roughly speaking, that's what your print voucher will be. If you want to play it a little safe, you can order just under of what your print voucher, what the print total comes out to. If you want to order it and make sure you have more than enough to cover shipping and everything else, then order the step above on the print voucher. Completely up to you. Whatever you decide to order, it'll take it off when you do place that print order. Let's see. Ellie says, so I want to order 200 issues. Are proofs included or extra? A digital proof is included. Print proof is extra. Print proof is an extra $25 plus shipping. Shipping would be like $7. Ellie says, okay, so I add 2 perks, the sample pack and the 200 issue order voucher. And keep in mind, the vouchers are by monetary amount, not by quantity of print run. I was thinking of doing quantity of print run, but the combinations I'd have to come up with, it was something close to like 70 different perks that would be on that page. It would have been a nightmare. It is much easier. You guys use the price list, figure out what you'd like to get, and then order the print voucher that goes with it. Cam says, I got a sketch card. Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, Cam. Marcel says, hey, Pete, do you have a staff? If not, why are you doing things all by yourself? Hire teens or something. Marcel, would you hire teens to do this? I'll let you think about that for a second. Cole King says, Blood Moon had a stretch goal of being printed in 2 single issues on newsprint. Any chance that could just be added on the campaign now, since you'd be printing it yourself? Let's see. Blood Moon had a stretch goal of being printed in a 2 single issue on newsprint. If Blood Moon were to... We'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens with Blood Moon. If Blood Moon were to be like a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 campaign, something like that, I definitely would have been like, yeah, we'll totally do that. Right now, I got to gauge if there's going to be demand for it. So once the book is out, we'll gauge the reception, and then I'll move forward with it like that. It is definitely more of a possibility, though, with the printing being in-house as opposed to before with the commercial printing involved. So it's a good point, but I really got to make sure. Marcel, yes, competent ones. Marcel, come on. Now I'm running this in-house in my home. Think about it. Because now we're talking about a $60,000 goal if I need to purchase office space, insurances, get proper payroll, everything that involves employee costs. You can't just like hire some kids. This isn't like, stuff in envelopes for like the shady guy in like the corner of the room working at like some weird studio apartment, right? So I'm going to be doing it in-house. First of all, I don't need a staff. Second of all, would you have strange teenagers come into your home that you don't know to assemble and do all the stuff that you want them to do in a job that requires perfection? Cost would go up too, by the way. Cost would go up big time on the per copy. The only thing that would maybe decrease, I say it lightly, maybe, would be production time. I'd be better off buying 2, 3, or 4 printers than hiring one teenager that I would have to train, supervise, and look over everything they did to make sure they did it perfectly. Gotta think about it. Electricity costs, all that stuff is built into the price per copy. Citizen Ronan says people will have an army of midget printing staff called the Alterna Lupas. So I love the fact that maybe this inspires people too to start seeing like, hey, if Pete could do it, he looks like a pretty dumb guy. I think I could do this too. And maybe they do it. Maybe they purchase their stuff. Maybe they only do it for themselves. They don't have to do it for other people. So maybe they think like, I make like a couple hundred comics a year. I can just do that, take my time with it, and just make my own. Do a $5,000 to $7,000 investment about whatever. Maybe I get some of this stuff and just start making comics. Heck, maybe they make just a $5,000 investment. They just get the printer and the paper and the ink, and they do the hand folding, and they could just get like everything, not at the commercial or industrial level, but they can get like a $40 paper trimmer, or don't get a stack cutter, $40 paper trimmer, trim each comic one at a time. It doesn't matter, if they just need like 50 copies for a show, you spend a couple of weekends putting that together and you'll have that ready to go. Maybe this inspires people to do that too. Who knows? Because it's possible. I'm telling you, it's possible, and you could do it. Do you have to do it exactly like how I'm doing it? No, you don't have to. I'm doing it and streamlining it in a way to get everything I need to scale it and to do it as quickly as I possibly can, as perfectly as I possibly can. But you don't need to do that. You could easily get, a really good printer that'll do what you need it to do, and get all the equipment you need on a very small scale to just do this for yourself. And like I said, you could probably pop out, 50 copies to 100 copies of your comic like in a month, and not kill yourself with the workload or whatever, and just do it, take your time and make these hand cut comics. A guy yesterday, or 2 days ago on Open Mic, was talking about how it's Odyssey Comics. He's this dude in Canada, and he's making these kind of hand cut, hand assembled, one at a time comics. And it's possible. You could do it. Even years ago when George Alexopoulos was saying it, about what he was doing, it's like, yeah, you could do it. At the time, I needed to make 20,000 comics. and send them to distribution. So it's like, yeah, it's not really going to help my situation. You know, if I had to make 20,000 comics right now, I wouldn't be considering doing this. That wouldn't make any sense. But if you've got like, 200 to 500 comics to make or something like that, like I got to make about 1,000 copies between 4 issues on Blood Realm 15 to 18. It'll probably take about 6 weeks to 8 weeks to put it all together once everything is done. Yeah, that's not bad. Sometimes I'm waiting 2 or 3 months for a print run, and it doesn't go right. So I don't mind putting in the work. I don't mind putting in the time. The last thing I want, though, is anyone, and I know, Marcel, that, you say I'm going to be overworked. I'm not making a car, Marcel. I'm not building cars from home. I'm trimming pieces of paper. Everything else is largely being done by a printer or by a folding machine. It's not hard. It takes time, but it's not hard. And don't worry about me. I don't like it when people worry about me in a way that is kind of making it seem like I'm a sickly Victorian child. Don't worry, it'll be okay. Let's see. Chris 6 says, Pete, what will be the page maximum per issue? Right now, 48. 48 pages. I could do 56. I could probably do up to 64. But I don't want to tempt fate with that just yet. Once I perfect 48, which I can do. I can perfect 48, put those together, staple it, and the book will look great still. So I could do that. 56 and 64, even like 60, even 52, it's still... I'm flirting with disaster at that point. So 48 pages maximum right now, till I can kind of figure out my way around it. If I could do more, I'll let you know. Let's see here. Apex says, strange, competent teenagers working at Alterna. They better be damn good. Well, yeah, and... Mighty Joe says, graphic design students, college interns. Guys, that would give me an ulcer more than working 18 hours a day. Again, like having to oversight that, having to maintain all that, having to like put people in the space, it doesn't make any possible sense. I can do what I can do, and that's why I'm doing it. If I have to go at that level, I have to consider now upping the space and everything else that goes with that. That's a whole other thing. And that also means bye-bye Alterna, bye-bye King Cryptid. Because once you go down that line, once you start going into the realm of like, now I'm hiring people, now I'm having oversight, now I'm taking college interns. You can't just like set up say, hey, I'm a business now and I take college interns. You got to actually have proof to the college that you are an adequate place for them to send their students. For you to, this isn't like Kramerica Industries and Seinfeld, where I can just tell people like, hey, yeah, well, I got a business. They'd be more applicable to do that for Alterna than for the print part of it. But even then, like, what am I gonna do? Like, tell them how to do everything they're already learning in graphic design school of like, this is how you do a full bleed. This is how you prep a file. This is what a file type is. It's not really anything that they're going to get experience wise. There's a lot of different, like Image Comics used to have like a bunch of interns, and almost every one of them would say that all you end up doing is getting coffee for people, and you're just kind of hanging around and you're just there. I don't need anyone to be here taking up space and being around for me to delegate to them something that I can easily do within 2 seconds instead of explaining it for 5 minutes to them. So this isn't that level of an operation. If it got to that level of an operation, there'd be a whole different metric involved. There'd be different logistics involved. There'd be a whole different setup involved. I'd have a much bigger place. I'd be getting full-size machines. It'd be like a actual dedicated up and running printer company. But again, if I do that, there's going to be a heck of a lot of time less for the stuff that I actually really want to do. So it'd be one of those things of like, I'm doing this to help a problem that I'm having. I'm not doing this to create another problem that eliminates the thing that I wanted to do to begin with. So if I end up going down this path and it takes over everything that I wanted to do to begin with of why I'm doing this to help solve the problem, then it turns into, well, why am I doing this at all? Like, I'm doing this so I can continue to make comics. I'm doing this so I can continue to make art. If I'm going down the path where I gotta like expand to a point where I don't have time to make art or make comics, I'm gonna have to start questioning, well, why am I doing this? Because I'm not just doing this to print stuff for other people. That's part of it. But if I end up going completely down that road, I'm going to end up doing nothing with what I want to do at all with my life, which is not something I plan on doing. So while I appreciate everyone saying, you know, hire this, do that, intern that, whatever it is, it's completely unnecessary at this point, and that's expanding way too fast, way too soon. You know, what am I at right now on the campaign? You know, if I reach the goal within 5 minutes and we're at like $40,000 right now, maybe I could think about that. But we're at 2,318. You know, it's great. And I love the support and I appreciate all of it. And I think the campaign is doing fantastic right now for what it is. But I'm not at a point to think about hiring employees or expanding into a bigger spot. I haven't even hit the goal yet. I haven't even hit the $5,000 goal to purchase the printer yet that I got to purchase. Everyone's talking about like these huge things of, you know, do this, do that, do the other thing. One thing at a time. One thing at a time. Apex says, my publishing company requires LOW overhead. Maximum of 200 copies per title is all I need. There you go. Let's see. Sheldon Martin says, I'm worried that Pete won't make that 100 grand goal in 30 days. Yeah, see? That's a normal worry. You know, if I do, I do. If I don't, I don't. I'm not really necessarily worried that's not a goal. That's like a pipe dream stretch goal, you know? Rex says, ketchup and mustard in the same bottle. Get the campaign going. There you go. Ross says, once down that path you tread forever, will it dominate your destiny? Yeah, 100%, Ross and Yoda. And yeah, Cramerica. There you go. So exactly. You know, I love where we're going so far, but it's one of those things where I want to make sure one thing perfected at a time. Just like when you create a comic book universe, so many people go into it and it's like, here's this title, here's that title, here's this title. So here's like, you know, 6 or 7 titles, you know, and here's my whole universe, and you got to follow along with everything instead of like, let's perfect one title at a time, introduce characters into that title. If it picks up steam, then maybe, if possible, we'll put another title out for that character. But if it's like this one, instead of sticking to the main core title, you stretch yourself too thin, you take on too much, you're going too fast, you're expanding way too quickly. That's the number one thing that kills any business, is expansion happens too quickly. It's just a rule, essentially. But it's the same thing. You want to make sure that what you're doing it right. You've worked out all the little problems that could possibly be. Generally takes some time. Like I said, the first couple of weeks when I get everything in, I'm going to be running test prints. I'm going to be running configurations to see how does all of this work so I can maximize the space, maximize the equipment, and then hit the ground running. And then there's going to be little things here and there to make adjustments. But none of that's going to get figured out right away. And if I take on too much too fast, the whole thing, the wheels are going to fall right off. Let's see. Apex says, I wouldn't hire employees either, Pete. Save money and prosper. Yeah, you got to do that when you need to do that. You shouldn't just do that because you can, or maybe don't you want like an extra 2 hours out of the day? No. R2 says, hire another Pete so you can go to bed and leave the campaign launch stream to Pete 2.0. Well, I wish I could, give me a clone machine and get another one of me going. But anyway, that's it for me now. We're at the 2 hour and 4 minute mark. So that's it for the campaign launch stream tonight. Let's check this one last time before I part ways with you guys. It is at 2,318, 21 backers on board. Make sure to check this campaign out. It's on Fund My Comic. You can go to newsprintcomics.com and check this campaign out directly. It'll take you to the fundmycomic.com/newsprintcomics page. Or again, like I said, you can just go to newsprintcomics.com. A link is also on the Alterna site. If you check out the printing link on the Alterna site, it'll take you right to this campaign as well. It's for 2 different sizes of comics. There's a mini and a standard newsprint interiors, and we're getting these printed in-house, moving all of our single-issue newsprint comic printing in-house. And hopefully with your help, we can make this possible with this $15,000 goal. At $5,000, we get started. I purchased the first big printer with some ink and some paper, and the active live campaign with the mini goals that we have hopefully continues to raise more and more, and we can get everything else up and running that is needed to do so. Other than that, thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. Really appreciate it. Spread the idea, spread the campaign around. If you know a creator where this could be of use to them, again, runs of 200 or less, between 8 pages to 48 pages, newsprint interiors, saddle stitch, stapled comics. If you know of a creator that this might be of use to them, give them a heads up, let them know about this campaign, let them check out the pricing for themselves. This is pricing that they have to see to believe. And let them check out those videos too on the campaign. It's tough to argue with what I'm showing there. This is actual proof of concept stuff. This isn't stuff that I'm like, well, maybe I could do that. Maybe it could be, maybe I could make a comic look good or make a comic lie flat. Here it is in hand. These 2 mini comics, and they could easily be full-size comics if I had the right printer to get it all done on. So that's it for me tonight. Thank you so much. Everyone continue to spread the word, and that'll be that. So everyone have a wonderful night, and I will see you guys tomorrow night. Until then, that's it for me. All the best, everyone. Thanks, and take it easy.